There is a skip man right outside my house. Gonna park straight across my drive, okay mate? Why now? Basically where I'm going to share with you an event that had happened, and when I look back on it now, it's... oh my god! Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So before I begin, there is a skip outside and he's taking the piss. He has been here for like half an hour and he's still going. So I'm just going to carry on, and if you can hear him, please try and ignore him because it's ridiculous. Basically today I'm going to share an event with you that has happened, and when I look back on it now it's really funny, but at the time it wasn't as funny, so I've decided that I'm going to share it with you and you can make your own judgment. So I'm calling this Creepy Russian Sex Stalker, and that's how we're going to roll with it. So basically I started my job in a supermarket shop thing nearly 2 years ago, and there's this man who used to come in pretty regularly after I started working. Apparently no one had ever seen him before, but as soon as I started working he started making more appearances. He was about 45 and I don't actually know his name, so for this instance we're going to call him Robert. I don't actually know his name, and Robert isn't a Russian name, but we're going to go with Robert. So yeah, he used to come in, and to begin with he was really lovely. He couldn't speak a lot of English. I didn't really notice him, he was just another customer, another regular customer. And then about 3 or 4 months after I started working there, my friend, who we will call Louise, who I worked with, she basically came up to me and she was like, there's this man and he's following you around the shop. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said that basically if I took something like a bag of crisps to put out, he would follow me and stand like behind the aisle and like peek around. And I was like, okay, that's weird. So kind of ignored it, kind of let him just get on with it, and thought maybe this is just a one-off, like he's being a bit weird and he'll forget about it. But he didn't, and it got weirder. So basically every time he came in he used to like stand in the aisle next to me and watch me, and in the queue he would ask people to go in front of him if I wasn't going to serve him. So because we've got 2 tills, if the till next to me became available and he was next in line, he'd ask the person behind to go in front of him so that I could serve him. And I started to get a bit creeped out by this, because when I did serve him, he would always try and make sure there was no one else in the shop. So he'd hang around until a lot of people had left and been served, and then come to the till, and he would just stand there and stare at me for ages. And it got so creepy once that I buzzed my colleague Louise and I said, can you come out, because this guy's creeping me the shit out. Like, he's just standing there and staring. He wouldn't say anything, he didn't, just stood there and just looked at me, and I was like, go away. But he wouldn't. So that's when I started to get a bit creeped out, and I told my boss about him, and my boss said that if he came in while my boss was there, that he would say, look, being a bit creepy, let's stop, or he would be banned. And I said if we could ban him, that would be like freaking ideal. Anyway, I don't know whether Robert knew work schedules or what, but he never came in the shop when there was a male member of staff on, ever, because none of the male members of staff ever saw him, and they said if they did they would have said something, but no one ever saw him. Literally the only people that saw him were me and my colleague Louise and one other member of staff, who he was a bit creepy to her as well. Literally only us 3 would ever see him. So as I started telling my female colleagues about him, I was like, just be wary because he's a bit creepy. They kind of started to notice it too, but that he wasn't as creepy towards them as he was towards me. But my colleagues were really great, because if he'd come in, they would stand on the till with me until he left, just in case he was to do anything. I don't know what he would have done, but just in case he was to do anything. So he then took a bit of a stalking break, and I didn't see him for about a month, and I was like, thank fucking hell, there's another skip. Literally the skip man just left, and I was like, peace and quiet. And then this guy arrives. Anyway, yeah, he took a bit of a break and I didn't see him for like a month, and I thought, thank God he's moved away, or he's moved on to some other shop, some other girl at another shop, and it's not my problem anymore. And then all of a sudden, randomly, I was working a night shift and he came in and he was trying to talk to me. He kept buying scratch cards, and even if he didn't win, he'd just be like, give me another, and just so he could stay and talk, basically, I guess. But he would never really talk, he'd just kind of stand and stare. And he kept asking me what time I finished work, and I told him on many occasions that I finished work at 11 when the shop closes. Now, the shop doesn't close at 11, the shop closes at 10, well, 10 to 10. So I thought if I told him that I finished at 11, maybe if he was going to be outside, he would be outside at 11 o'clock when I'd already driven home. And I had to make sure that either my boyfriend picked me up or my boyfriend was outside at 10 o'clock when I finished, even if I wasn't seeing him that night, just so there was someone there with a car if he was to walk around the corner, basically. And my boss told me that if that was to ever happen, literally, because I had to lock up, just leave, basically, because he was like, at the end of the day, he's not interested in robbing the shop, he's interested in you, so get yourself out of there, basically. So I used to have to either park my car like right next to the shop, or I had to get my boyfriend to pick me up or like supervise me. And obviously I'd never locked up the shop on my own, there's always another member of staff with me, but it was just a case of like feeling more secure. And then I was working one Saturday morning, and there's this really old man that comes in, and he is adorable, he is lovely, and he is a very lonely man, basically. It's not a bit creepy, but he's very lonely, and he doesn't have a wife, and he doesn't have kids, and he's just like really lonely. So every time he comes in, he like talks to you, and he's English, and he's lovely, and he always gives you a hug at the end, basically. He always gives you a hug, and he doesn't do it just to me, he does it to everybody, even like customers. If he knows them, he gives them a hug. He's a huggy man. So I was serving him, and at the end he gave me a hug and he walked away, and then I looked up and this freaking Russian man was stood in the queue. So I was like, okay, no worries, because my colleague's next to me. If anything happened, hopefully he'll go to her and not to me. So it came to it, and he was pushing people in front of him so that I would serve him, and in the end I got so frustrated that I just went, fuck it, I'll serve him. And he came over to the till and he was asking me if he could have a kiss, if he could have a hug, all of this. And I basically said, I was like, no, that's my granddad. I made up a lie and I was like, that's my granddad, I don't just hug random people. And I was like, why are you being creepy? And he was like, so what are you doing after work? And I said, I'm actually going to my boyfriend's house. And he was like, oh, you have a boyfriend? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, he's very lucky. And I was like, thank you. And then he was like, so do you kiss your boyfriend? And I was like, this is getting creepy. Like, my colleague was next to me looking at me like, what the fuck is he saying? And I was like, literally, this is creeping me the shit out right now. And I just kind of laughed it off awkwardly, and then he was like, do you have sex with your boyfriend? And I was like, this is inappropriate. I basically turned to him and I was like, okay, enough of this conversation, goodbye, basically. I was just like, and I said to my colleague, I was like, can we swap? Because I don't want to talk to him anymore. And obviously after that I told my boss straight away, and I was like, he's being really inappropriate, asked me what I'm doing after work, asked me about my sex life, like it got too inappropriate. So my boss basically said that he would keep an extra special eye out, look on the cameras to discover who he was, and like make sure that he wasn't around. And I think he got the message when I basically fucked off. I was like, I'm not talking to you anymore. And my boss always told me to press my panic button if he got too creepy, because we have a little button that we can press if someone's harassing us or anything like that. But because he wasn't physically doing anything, and because I don't like confrontation, I would never press the button, which I really regret, because if he said that to me now, I'd be like, and the man would come over and I'd be like, this man's harassing me, he's asking me about my sex life and I don't feel comfortable. And that would have been fine. But because I was so like scared of confrontation, I would never do that. So I think he kind of got the image when I told him that I didn't want to speak to him anymore, and I kind of left. And he hadn't been in for a good couple of months then. Well, personally, I didn't see him for a good couple of months. And then a few weeks ago, he made another appearance, and he came in as my colleague left the till area, and I could have buzzed her, but I didn't, and he was being creepy again. He didn't say anything, but he did the thing where he kept buying scratch cards even if he wasn't winning. And then about 5 minutes later, after him kind of just awkwardly stood there not saying anything, my colleague came out and she was like, I saw him on the camera, so I came out. And as soon as she came out, he left. So again, it was obvious that he didn't want to speak to anyone else but me, kind of thing. And yeah, I haven't actually seen him since. So fingers crossed that is the end of him and it and everything, because he is vile. But I guess you never know, and I'll probably see him tomorrow now that I've told you all of this. Yeah, but the reason why I wanted to share this with you is because I've kind of noticed a lot of people like write blog posts on it and stuff, and a lot of people feel harassed at work and things like that, and it's, I don't want to say it's common because it shouldn't be, but it is. And you know, if you're sat at home thinking, oh my god, I have someone like this, then do something about it, because if you just sit there it will probably get worse, and you know, you never know what someone's capable of. So that's basically the reason why I wanted to share this story with you, but also because I look back at it now and it's kind of funny, because it's kind of like, why was I scared of him? Do you know what I mean? But every time he comes in, my heart drops. I'm like, oh, fuck, he's in again, because I know that he will not let anyone else serve him. And if he does let anyone else serve him, it's a 5-second transaction and he's gone. Whereas when it's me, he has to hang around, and it's creepy as shit. So, yeah, basically that's my story. I hope you've enjoyed. Wrong word, probably. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Please feel free to leave any comments below, and I'll see you in my next video.